All decent folk find the common rat repulsive. Harbinger of disease, it scavenges upon our waste heaps and frightens our children. How immeasurably worse, then, the foul Skaven, standing on its hind legs in a foul parody of humankind. Rats as tall as a man, and blessed with the most vile intellect and cunning. They are the dark side of our souls, come to destroy us for our sins.
Is that the Alex Jones of Old World? What's going on there? But yeah, we're back. There's been an extended break because Lewis, I don't know, was off gallivanting or some shit. You told me what you were doing.
I don't gallivant, I move with purpose.
All right, didn't realise. There's a TV show called Gallivant, which is a musical comedy with 2 seasons that I keep seeing like clips pop up on my YouTube. YouTube really wants me to watch it for some reason, and it looks pretty good, so I need to get around to that at some point. But yeah, that's...
YouTube is very much at the moment trying to make me watch Game of Thrones, and I've never been able to get beyond the first season of Game of Thrones.
Well, if you don't like the
YouTube
first
is now
season,
sending me clips.
I wouldn't recommend continuing on because, like, you know, it's pretty good for a chunk of it, but then it's pretty not good for the end of it.
Lewis is back.
Oh, really?
Now
It
take you to
deteriorates, does
Detroit,
it?
or at least the British
I've
equivalent
heard
of
the
said
military
place.
tactics in some kind of siege somewhere near the end are particularly poor, in that they put their
Really?
catapults in front of the walls instead of on the walls, which I did think was an error, potentially, if that is true.
I don't know that's the biggest concern with the show. Like, if the military tactics are the thing we're critiquing, like a fantasy historical show on, like, we can probably fucking manage. I think there were far more decisions. I mean, the short version is, if you're not plugged in at all, is the 2 showrunners got offered a deal by Disney, and then, from all accounts of it, rushed through the final season, did a shit job, and then Disney rescinded their offer because they're like, hold on now, this is the quality that we're looking for. This is not on. So yeah, couldn't happen to nicer people. Good to see you all. Thank you, Oakboy Phil, and also Tanako says Lewis is back now. Take him to Detroit, or at least the British equivalent of said place. What is the relevance of Detroit?
Old car manufacturing? Take me to Dagenham.
Yeah,
The Ford factory is still in Dagenham. I don't know if there is still car manufacturing in Detroit.
Is it
Probably
that it's a really deprived area? That's what I know of Detroit. Robocop?
Could be.
Yeah? Yeah, I'm not really 100% following, but I'm sure there was a logical thought there that I'm just too British to understand. That's probably
But
it.
he has given you $5, so happy days. That's
Indeed.
worth every penny.
Indeed. You know what? I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. Thank you very much. It wasn't at all a comment about you, just the the rising price of oil and the failing gold standard world currency. But this is not a politics podcast.
Yep, $5, that'll get you about 3 miles nowadays.
We're going to talk about something far more controversial than the war in Iran. We're going to talk about Renegades, which I think genuinely might have a greater proportion of people discussing it. Because moving on, we are here because I've talked about Renegades a lot, but Lewis, as someone so cunningly nicknamed you, Lewis, I've got better things to do on a Tuesday, Elms. Oh, that was Callum. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That sounds about right. He did tell me at a time. To be fair, like it was on me, that one that we missed, that I missed a stream. But anyway, moving back into the realm of reality. I've obviously talked about Renegades a lot, but Lewis hasn't. Have you looked at much of the Renegade stuff, Lewis?
Yes, so I've looked at, obviously, we've got Dark Elves and Skaven. I don't think we haven't had any more than that, have we?
Not yet, no.
Have we had any more? Not yet, no, cool, great. I was worried I'd missed something there, but no. Dark Elves and Skaven obviously out.
Renegade
Amy is
hype.
fully correct in the chat. A Renegade hype. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I've always been pro Renegades, so getting my biases out on the table straight off the bat.
Well, you would be, because you're, given that you only played Legacy armies, you needed the power boost when you played. Hold on, checks notes. Vampire counts. Hold on now. Hold on now. This isn't the burn that I thought it might be.
Do you know? To be fair, one thing that I think potentially has an opportunity to really get people behind Renegades that aren't, is if they do a sensible set of adjustments to vampire counts. Now I know they've said that their aim isn't really to balance the legacy factions; it's more to actually just make them playable, because in their raw form nowadays, they're basically, some of them, unplayable.
I think that was the old vibe. I think the new vibe is more balancing, because it's become more and more apparent that Games Workshop shall not be doing so.
Yeah. Although I think, yes, I agree that they've gone further this time than they did in the first iteration of the legacy changes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say they've taken, say, the Skaven. I don't think they've necessarily brought them up to the level of, I mean, what's the sort of midpoint, maybe like Chaos Warriors or something like that. They've not brought them up that high, have they? So I don't know that they've played with the balance enough that you look at Skaven now as a real serious threat in the way that you maybe look at Cathay or maybe Vampire Council or some of the other sort of top factions. I don't think they've taken them up that high. They might have improved them by making them more playable, making them just work a little bit better, and that by extension has made them slightly more powerful. But I don't know that that was the stated aim, to aim for a certain level of balance with each of the changes that they've made, have they?
I can't remember. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, and it's been a long few weeks. You know what? Before we go head deep into Renegades, what have you been up to? What have you been spending the last 4 weeks on? Explain yourself.
Where have you been? I've been painting Cathay, and we are doing a Path to Glory campaign in the Saffron Club at the moment. So we're doing 500 points. So I've played a couple of 500-point games with the Cathay. We went through my list in our last stream ages ago, but it's basically 2 big units of Jade Warriors, Gate Master, and a rocket battery. I can see where everybody goes for cannons. Because it's my first experience with artillery, and it's not good. It does kill itself more than I would like it to.
Yep, that is correct.
And also, when you're playing 500 points, and then like 120 points of your army pretty consistently blows itself up, in my case, it's not good. So I've been absolutely steamrolled by the Tomb Kings. I then beat some other Cathay. First ever game of Old World, so I can't exactly run and shout that from the rooftops, because we were learning the Cathay as we were going, and he was actually learning how to play the game at the same time. So yeah, that was very much fun. We enjoyed
classic Lewis behaviour, bullying new players. That's what I expect to see from you.
Welcoming new players to the Old World hobby. That's what I'm doing.
Here's a heads up: if you play Cathay, people are going to hate you. Here's a taste of it. Yeah, go on. Don't let me interrupt you.
We worked out because half my Jade Warriors have got halberds, because I think the halberds look cool. But as you tactfully advised me in our previous discussion about my list, the halberds are not good. But
I do feel like Cassandra sometimes. Like, cursed to fucking give advice that's completely ignored. And then people come back to me and be like, you were right by this, by the way. I know! It's my job!
No. I have found something that halberd-armed Jade Warriors are very good at killing. Other halberd-armed Jade Warriors.
Excellent.
You put them into each other,
pleased
you get the charge. The halberds are really good at killing the other Jade Warriors, who are also having halberds with no shields.
Excellent. You can't imagine how pleased I am right now.
So all people that love Cathay can know that the good thing, that things that Cathay are really good at killing, is other Cathay. And everybody else wins in that engagement.
You know what? Actually, I'm on board with that. That works out okay as far as I'm concerned. I can live with that. That Cathay have been ruined.
But no, really enjoying it. As we've discussed before, 500-point Old World games are really good fun. They
That's
play
true.
really fast. They look really like traditional Warhammer. And I think they really give you a flavour of the game in a way that trying to, especially for, say, some of those new players are getting into it, trying to play at 2,000 points just really can't give you because you've got too much to think about. So we've got to learn how artillery works and got to play with what happens if your guys with swords and shield charge my guys with swords and shields and all those sort of getting the parry rules learnt and learning what Jade Lancers do on the charge because he had Jade Lancers and things like that. So learning about the challenge mechanic, and at 500 points when you've both just got one character who neither character is particularly tanky, actually it feels like it really means something when you declare that challenge and my Gate Master's fighting his Gate Master, or in the Tomb Kings game I played, all I had left was my Gate Master and I went and managed to charge and kill the Hierophant in the Tomb Kings list. Still lost massively, but managed to take down the Hierophant. That when you're playing smaller games, your characters really start coming alive because they're more significant in the overall scheme of the game that you're playing in front of you. So it just really allows you to have that kind of weighty sort of character experience, which I really, really like. And Rick, who's running it, has come up with a great little sort of it's not massively influential, but like a bit of an experience system that units and characters can gain over the course of the games that you play, so they can get leveled up and get improvements to their weapon skill or extra wounds for characters and things like that. So
is he
it's
aware
really good.
that there is a Path to Glory progression chart that exists already? Or
yes, that's what he's used to base it off, I think.
Okay, cool. I was curious as to whether he just reinvented the wheel or if he'd just improved on something that exists already, because I think that table does lack in some certain ways.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done I haven't put them next to each other and compared them, but I know from conversation that he's taken rules that already exist, put them in our little spreadsheet that we've got, and people are tracking their games on there. Some people have played loads of games. I think someone's played like 7 or 8 games in the first few weeks, which is really exciting. I've only managed to get 2 in so far, but 2 is what we need to do as a minimum. I have a feeling I'm not quite going to get it all painted in time, just because it takes me a long time to paint Giant Warriors, and I've got like 30 of them in 500 points. So I probably won't get caught up until we maybe hit 1,000 points. But I'm really enjoying it, and it is really motivating me to get as many Cathay models painted as possible. So I think it makes me feel more realistic that I'm going to get to 2,000 points painted this year rather than waiting for ages and ages. So yeah, that's what I've been doing the last 4 weeks. I've picked up the new box of Cathay, which is really exciting, and the new book, which I'm halfway through reading. I haven't built any of the new models into any lists or anything yet. I'm trying to find what I would take out of a 2,000 point list to put the new stuff in.
Those Jade Lancers, now that they're not in core.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, do it that way.
Yes. Like to swap them maybe for the crane gunners, the guys with the shields, the 2 blokes stood next to each other's shields. I really like them; they're really cool. Need to fit them in somewhere, yeah. So really, it's an exciting time to be a Cathay player, that's for sure. Although I feel that's probably it for releases for a little while, isn't it? For Cathay, particular.
Well, you
think more coming?
Yeah, this year.
You got some inside knowledge you're not allowed to tell us about?
I have some it's like when you say inside, there's inside and then there's like in the porch. I have in the porch information. So the specifics I may be less knowledgeable about, but yeah, there will be indeed more Cathay coming. Apparently this year.
What are we missing from the Total War roster? We're missing the
Longmas
Riders, sorry.
I want more Pegasus Knights in my game.
That's what we want.
That would be incredible.
More skirmish cavalry with wings. We're probably missing some of the other dragons as well, I suppose, in terms of the other dragon characters.
Not that. But
no?
Dragon's an interesting word. I've realised how funny it is that I can just start rumours right now. And by saying Dragon's interesting while we're talking about Cathay, people are like theoretically going to spin that into something. And we're just going to move on from there.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Famously, never lie. I don't. That's not famous, but I try not to. Anyway, I'm going off piste. I spent all that time while you were talking, listening and engaging, but trying to sort some fucking pictures on my back end because I realised I hadn't actually taken pictures of what I've been doing. So I'm going to an event this weekend.
Sorry?
You want sorry?
It's those are pictures of your back end. I was like, why are we taking photos of that right now? This feels like an inappropriate time.
Get your mind out the gutter. God damn. I try and do a serious Warhammer podcast, and then there's this guy. Disgraceful behaviour, man. I don't know what to do with him. Like, he doesn't turn up for 4 weeks. This is what I get when he arrives. Like, what's
I
the
haven't
point
turned
of it?
up for one episode, just FYI. The
And
rest
it's
of
been
it's
4
normal
weeks
schedule.
since the last time he was here. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Anyway, that aside, I am at an event this weekend coming, and
Exciting.
I also spent last weekend sat at the TSN arena, just vibing, doing some painting, painting some Chaos Dwarfs, because that's the army
Awesome.
that I will be painting. So I've got some pictures for some bits that I've been working on. We can cut to the photo. There we go. Cool. So this is a bronze paint scheme that I've been working on, and honestly, there's probably a video in how easy it is to get a really nice effect with this. I've got some better pictures as well, but look at that! Look at that bronze. It photographs okay, or rather, my ability to photograph it is okay, but in person it looks fantastic. And then there is
There's a
bit
really
more of a
easy
close-up.
way you can get really good quality photos without needing any kit or any special cameras or anything like that, and how I take all of mine.
Oh yeah,
You literally take some sheets of white card, relatively thick card, but like white, or you can do black card. Put one sheet flat on the table and one sheet vertical up against the wall. Put your model in the center, sort of relatively close to the wall, and then with your painting light or whatever lamps you use painting, you point them down direct at the model and play around with the brightness, and then just take a photo on your phone. You can get actually a really good quality photo doing that on a plain white background, which it's okay. I mean, it's not professional quality, but you will at least get a really nice quality photo. And that's literally all the ones that I take, which I mean, like someone's taken a proper photo. I literally
Nice.
done with sheets of white card underneath and on the behind the model.
I'll have to keep that in mind. Because
yeah.
I will say my picture game is weak, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There is one last picture that I want to share, and you'll have to.
And if you've, sorry, just rambling on about taking photos. If you've got an iPhone, I don't know how to do it on Android, but if you've got an iPhone, when you have the miniature in shot, have it in the center of the 9 squares, if you tap just to the right of the center and then move up or down, you can increase, I think it's called the exposure. I'm not a camera person. I've no idea. It look, that's bloody Thomas the Tank Engine. Make it look, make it have more light or less light. So
Yeah.
it makes it really clear with the white background. It really makes the miniature pop out. So there's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
Carry on. Talk about your train.
I don't need to say anything. I think that smile, that damned smile, says all that it needs to. I do also now have Thomas the Dank Engine, the mashup of Thomas the Tank Engine and Biggie Smalls, just stuck now in the back of my head. So we're probably gonna have to move on, otherwise I will never recover. Indeed. But yeah, so that's what I've been working on. Been doing some painting. It's very fun. There'll be a video. I'm going to try and remember to take a lot of photos this weekend so I can do an actual proper battle report. It's been a while since I've done one of those, and I should probably win as well if I'm going to do that. So I've got to do the work to get the army painted. Then I've got to do the work to try and win the event, and then I'll do the work to release the video. And if all goes well, all 3 parts of that will happen. And
Happy
if
days.
not, there'll be some catastrophic breakdown in the middle. Hopefully, if there is any breakdown, it's that I don't win the event, because that one's kind of the least important. I'd like to get the video out, and I'd like to get the army painted. Winning the event would just be the cherry on top.
How much practice have you had with the Dwarfs going into this weekend?
So 2 weeks ago, I played my first games of Chaos Dwarves. I played them at the TSN Arena. You could have seen them if you were tuned in at the Honest Wargamer on Twitch, because I was on stream. And in fact, I don't know if he's put them up yet. I should double check.
You're so famous.
Well, Rob was streaming it, but
Rob's so famous.
Rob's so famous indeed. So he said that one of the games is going to go up. The first game, I played a lovely American man called, I'm so bad with names. I'm pretty sure it was Devon, and if it wasn't, that is really bad on my behalf. But we had a great game to start us off with, and it was a great round one, and that one's going to go up on the YouTube at some point. So no, the other 4 games have gone up. If you're a patron member or channel member on YouTube, you can watch them there, or you can watch them live. But yeah, so eventually that other game will go up, and that'll be access to everyone if you want to see me play Dwarfs. And I went 3-2. It was okay. I made some fumbles, and it was very evident to me that I didn't have the muscle memory on certain things. Like, in game, I think it was game 1 and 5, which, funnily enough, the 2 games I lost, there were things that, like, looking back, I definitely forgot, like, impact hits a couple of times. I forgot to do my impact hits on the steam tanks, which theoretically would have won me some... And it was a case of we were trying to rush through the last few turns of the game. And when you've played an army a lot, you don't forget those things because you've got them built in. And I just forgot things. Yeah. So, and that's fine. I had 5 good games, 5 good opponents, had a good time. And now I've had 5 games of practice, so I can go and hopefully do well this weekend. But it'll be a lot of fun. Someone's in chat says, absolutely. Callum says, don't need to practice Chorfs, it's just being T7. That's really funny. And that's why we see all of the tournaments in the world being won by Chaos Dwarfs right now. That said, I'm a Chaos Dwarf truther. I think they're really good. Yeah. Caveat, in square-based comp, when I can bring 2,400 points to them and they're Renegades. So I don't have to bring double Sorcerer Prophet if I want to go double Bale Taurus. Yeah. Which leads us nicely... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what changes would you like to see in a potential future Renegades update for the Chorfs then?
I mean, it's a little difficult.
Or you have to leave them as they are.
So I've talked about this a few times. The community as a whole is very good at spotting what's not right, but actually coming up with what is right takes a lot more effort and work. So I'm not necessarily going to sit here and tell you what the problems are, but also I've identified, as is some like my skill set, I've identified what's good in the Chaos Dwarf book. And what I haven't done is really gone into depth on the other stuff, or done like a deep dive on historically what other things have. So I could give you an answer, but I don't think it'd be a great answer in terms of like, I'd have to sit down and think about it a lot to give you an actual proper answer about what I would want to do. So, but it's going to be all the stuff that's not played. Like, if you look at the 6 Chaos Dwarf players who are playing them and doing okay with them, I don't know if there's 6, I'm just pulling that number out my backside. It'll all be like Iron Demon, Bale Taurus, Black Orcs, probably a Black Orc character on Wyvern, but I'm not running that. So, like, it's all the same stuff. So you look at buffing the stuff that isn't that first. And,
the actual Chaos Dwarves, for example.
I'm taking 17 of them. I think I was really impressed with the unit that I took. So 2 weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to play the army Legacy. I didn't use the Renegades pack. I didn't use the Renegades rules. So I wasn't casting at, like, the spells were still at their OG casting values, which means I was never taking Storm of Ash because it's casting at 10. All of that stuff there, because I wanted to test what it felt like. And it was still at 2,400 points, but I wanted like a frame of reference before I started messing around with Renegades. This time around, I'm going to play Renegades. And it's going to be... I think it should be interesting. I'm looking forwards to playing characters that aren't just, wizards that need to roll a spell and cast a spell to have any actual combat prowess that then falls off at the end of their turn, so you don't have that prowess on your opponent's turn. Before I played them, I'd sat and done some maths, and I was like, if you cast Demonic Vessel, actually your output is as good as or better than the Castellans or the Seneschals, whatever they're called, on the Bale Taurus. Actually, if you think about it in these terms, it's really good. So I'll just need to make sure I'm casting the spell. Turns out you just don't get the spell half the time. You don't roll the spell most of the time. Like, you don't cancel it. Yeah, it's a 9 for Demonic Vessel. So I had a really poor track record of casting it across the weekend, and I'm not saying that in like this lost me the game. But it would have been really nice just to have the consistency of, this is a chap with a great weapon. He's got 4 attacks. His mount's got Furious Charge. Funny thing about Furious Charge, it doesn't say on the Taurus that it doesn't apply to the rider. So the rider gets a 5th attack with a great weapon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that. I've done a little bit of painting. I've got 1 Bale Taurus, like half red. It's got the the brass done on it as well. I did the brass first because
Nice.
it requires dry brushing. But again, I think there's probably a video in there because I think it's a fantastic technique and it's so easy to do.
Yeah. Are these 3D prints, are they? Or are they...
They are. And there'll be more information on that in the video. And that's all I'll say for now. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Another secret.
This is talking about my not Renegades into Renegades experience with Chaos Dwarves is a good segue into just talking about Renegades in general. We do have to keep this one to like a reasonable timer because you have a commitment to pick up your lovely wife. So indeed from the train station, not just physically. to go and give her a lift.
Already been successful on that front.
Excellent. I'm very pleased for you. Anyway, let's move on to what we were doing, which is talking specifically about the Renegades pack. And I've kind of made my thoughts known, so this is more I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, and then we can have a bit of back and forth on any points that I think you're stupid on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things that came across from your thoughts, which is something that I've always had in mind, is that our good friends at Games Workshop have made it incredibly clear that these rules that they've given us for legacy factions are rules that they did not test, they did not put a huge amount of time into them, and they did not plan on making them balanced for competitive play or make them with an intent of updating them. Now, initially, early doors, they did update them. I think we had 2 updates worth of changes to those PDFs, which made people think, oh, maybe they will actually keep a little bit on top of them and they'll just go along. But I think it's been quite clear now for probably best part of 2 years, 18 months at least, that they haven't been touched. And that for different ways, that is starting to become a problem. I think I would suggest the argument for including legacy factions in the game, if Games Workshop were trying to say that they shouldn't be in the game, I think Games Workshop have lost that argument. I don't think people are giving up on Vampire Counts. I don't think they're giving up on Ogres, or definitely not giving up on Skaven and the others. So those of us who are running events, like myself, or like you, Ed, making content about it, it's sort of been left to the community to decide what to do with them. Clearly, we could just leave them in the state that they are, but I think if you talk to anyone that plays Skaven, or you talk to anyone that plays Dark Elves, and ultimately this is what I think is the most important. I think for people that aren't interested in playing legacy factions, not that your opinion doesn't matter, but I think we should take into account the opinions of those that are actually trying to play these factions and sort of try and value them a little bit higher, in my opinion, because they're the ones trying to make them work. But if you talk to any of those players, they will tell you that I don't think they're that bothered by Skaven not being quite as strong as other factions. What I think they're bothered by is by the fact that their faction just doesn't work in its raw, unedited form. Dark Elves probably similar. Chaos Dwarf's pretty good. Vampire Count's pretty good, if anything, too good. Ogres, not great. But actually, there's just some fundamental list building restrictions or oddities or weirdness that mean some players' ideas of how their faction should work. Lizardmen, probably a good example of not being able to put the slan, I know this thing was fixed ages ago, but not being able to put the slan in the Temple Guard unit, for example. That's a pretty fundamental version of Lizardmen that's been in the game for a very, very long time. And you just think on a fundamental level, if you're a Lizardmen player, if you just take the raw book, you can't use your faction in a way that works in your head canon, or just on the game. And I don't think I think most Skaven players or Lizardman players or whatever will be pretty understanding their faction might not be up there with Cathay, but they would like to be able to use it as it looks, how it feels, or how it worked in the past, which is, I think, in my mind, why the Renegade stuff works quite well, because it's not just adjusting points, or it's not just saying, oh, you can have more character slots than everybody else or something like that. It's actually looking at those factions and going, especially with this second round of iterations, looking at those factions and go, right, how did these guys play in 8th edition, 6th edition, whatever? Can we bring some of that back without making the factions overpowered, without really doing it in a way to like make them better than everybody else, but at least make them usable, so that for being a legacy faction enjoyer, you're not just feeling that your army isn't just weak, it's just useless and it's just not fun to play. And I think if this Renegades pack is deemed a success, it will be deemed a success because legacy faction players walk away going, I'm passionate about playing Dark Elves again. I am really looking forward to using my Lizardmen this weekend because I feel like I've got a set of rules that I can use. And I know that they're probably never going to be as popular as the main factions because they're never supported. So if you're a new player coming in, you might not even know that some of these factions exist, or that you can get models for them, or that you can access them in a way that you can access the core factions. But that's okay in the short term if there is at least a set of rules there that work for those factions. Does that sort of make sense?
Sure. Amy says, do you think it was intentional to do all this? What are you referring to exactly there, Amy? As in for Games Workshop to drop the ball, or for like what part are you referring to for being intentional? Just while we're waiting for a clarification there, I've been writing some Lizardman lists for my friend who
Amazing.
just is sat on a Lizardman collection from 2 people who've just given him models. It's and I'm vaguely interested in playing them myself now. It feels like they're very similar to sort of what I'm trying to do with Chaos Dwarfs, which is a big Death Star, and then also some solid beaters on the side. I don't think it's as good, but I think there's some interesting angles there in terms of like having a fun time playing them short term. Games Workshop leaving them. I mean,
I don't think,
as far as I'm aware, it's all internal politics as opposed to anything else. They were written to be added to the game from, talking to people internally, and then that, a number of months beforehand, they were told, actually, you can't use these. So they just stopped developing the rules. Is the
That's what it feels like. Different books have got different further in the production process, haven't they? Vampire Counts very much feel fleshed out. I said this right at the start years ago.
I don't know if they feel more fleshed out, or if it's just that they copied and pasted stuff from Tomb Kings, added the Vampire Count specific stuff, and then didn't do the balancing. Like, are they more fleshed out, or are they just more overpowered?
Well, they're stronger, that's for sure, but I think that's probably just because the undead are strong. And as you say, there's some copy across from Tomb Kings there, but they get to ignore a load of the rules that push back on some of the other factions. Like, they don't need to worry about leadership, they don't need to worry about running away or anything like that. So they have just some fundamental strength that sits in there. Mm-hmm. But it's that you get different opportunity or different options to build different styles of list in Vampire Count, which I don't think. So you take Dark Elves, for example.
But you only get that because they're strong. Like,
yes,
the models exist to do it in Dark Elves. And, like, you could be like, oh, but there's vampire powers that you can take. There's big names for ogres. Like, there's stuff like that. I don't think they have more stuff than any of the other armies. I think they're literally just stronger, and thus you can pick more units, which makes them feel more fleshed out, but they're not actually. It's just that they're at the same level of development, and there's more shit in there that's playable.
Yeah, I guess. And then it depends on what you mean by fleshed out, I suppose, isn't it? In that, is fleshed out to you lots of different viable options, or is it the viability of the option that makes it fleshed out, or is it the fact that the option exists? Because I guess ultimately, you could make different types of. The number of units are in the Dark Elf book, for example, but realistically, you're running a couple of dragons and then some skirmishing stuff, aren't you? Everything else.
Responded to someone who said, "Please stop with the double dragon talk." It's like, brother, like I don't really care if you think that it is an unfun experience, it is the only competitive build for like elves in general. And
Yeah.
I'm not happy about that, but I'm not going to pretend that there's not a way to play them and at least get a 3-2 out of it. Like, come on.
Absolutely.
Like, what are we doing here? I was like, instead of the unfun experience of Double Dragons, how about you have the unfun experience of losing all your fucking games? Maybe there's that. Like, you know, if you're playing with your friends, which I'm assuming this is where this comes from, because, like, I assume that can't be coming from the perspective of, like, oh, I'm so sick of playing against Double Dragons at tournaments, unless they're going to very different tournaments than me. Yeah, it's not a problem competitively. So I assume it's playing with your friends. My answer would be, don't tell me to change what I'm saying. Talk to your friends and say, hey, I am having a bad time playing against this. Can we play something different? That's a great way to play Warhammer. Just like find a power level that you and your friends are happy with. What about the evasive Wood Elf list at Adepticon? I did see that one, yeah.
You do well, did it?
Yes, Adepticon's an interesting event. There were some weird and wonderful things in the rule pack. So that's maybe a topic for another day. But
A different topic, yeah.
You think,
but yeah, I mean, ultimately...
Hold on, sorry. You think that the level of competitive people are expecting is rising? To be fair, that makes list building feel more constrained. That is the fault of Cathay. Before Cathay, you could play more things, and the disparity between the top and the bottom was lower. Like, obviously, not the bottom, but like the top and the mid was lower. Then Cathay came out, and it's like either you play something that is like as efficient as possible, or you just have a bad time. And that is a holdover from where we were from like 10 months ago now.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely drives the rest of the meta around it, doesn't it? But yeah, coming back to thoughts on Renegades anyway, obviously they went through a first pass, 18 months ago, and made some, what I would say, pretty minor changes to a lot of these PDFs that just opened up the list building slightly. I think in some cases, I don't think they made massive changes. They just gave you a few more options, which has been more effective in some of the PDFs than others. Have done pretty well out of it in terms of some of the stuff that they've got access to, just some of the basic stuff that really should have been in the first PDF, but it has given them options. And it's given most of the factions options there, I think. Although I did know a few Skaven players were saying actually they were going back to the original PDF. I don't quite know why, but apparently that was happening. But they've now come across to, in the case of Skaven Dark Elves, with more to follow, increasing the amount of intervention that the community is having in these PDFs. And I think they have to be careful here, because I think there's always there's a level of resistance to community-based changes in competitive settings anyway, that's come through the surveys and come through various conversations and things as well. But the more you play around with rules, the more you get accused of making fundamental changes to the game that change how the game is played, or making things too powerful or not powerful enough, etc. So I think it's a brave move to start increasing the amount of changes. But going back to what I said right at the start, Games Workshop have flat out said they're not touching these, and a good 33% of the event going community currently has access to really shit rules that have got no hope of change in the next few years. So I think they've probably done it slowly enough that people will get on board with this. And the best test of this really is to go to the players that play Dark Elves, the players that play Skaven, and say, here's your rules, which is what they've done at the moment. They've not sort of formalised them as the final versions, but here's your rules. What do you think? What would you change? And ultimately, does this make you more excited to play your faction? And the Saffron community, at least, which is growing, but still very much new, or not necessarily playing at international level, but those players that play Dark Elves or Skaven that I've spoken to or messaged have unanimously come back and said, these changes make me excited to play Dark Elves again, or these changes make me excited for when my faction gets a look in. And I think if there are community-based changes which are trying to be done with the consent of the community and with the feedback of the wider community, that are making players more excited to play their faction, and it's a faction that Games Workshop have said they're not going to touch, and that you're on your own community, then I think this is excellent, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these books, PDFs, come out over the next few weeks with all the other factions in. Because if and I think from the reviews that you've done, Ed, there are definitely changes you'd make to these books that's put out, and there's some stuff that might be too good, some stuff that might not be good enough. But I think in terms of comparing the experience of a Dark Elf player just using the raw PDF from Games Workshop to what it will be using the square-based stuff, I think they're in for a much better experience. And I think ultimately the people they're playing against are going to face an army that looks a little bit more like a Dark Elf army, or a Skaven army that plays a bit more sensibly. The player of the Renegade faction to have a bit more fun. Ultimately, we're all here to have a bit more fun, and I think if people are happy to use them and play against them, and there's just that general level of consent, then I think this could be really, really positive for those legacy factions, and might even see an increase in the take-up of these factions and people using them.
Hopefully it shames Games Workshop into releasing them full-time. I don't believe that'll happen, but it would be great if it did. That would be amazing.
I mean, I think there's probably the people that write the old world rules who, from what we understand, are started as just a couple of guys really passionate about fantasy. I like to believe that those individuals, regardless of the politics internally, fundamentally believe these factions should be in the game. I don't think they set out to make fantasy and not put Skaven in it, for example.
Sure.
I don't think that was ever in the original. And as you've said, the PDF sort of got made and then sort of left behind. So I think there's probably a core of personal belief in the team making the old world rules that these factions should be in. It's just the political side of Games Workshop that has said that you can't have them because AOS wants them. And as you say, the only way that changes is community organisation. I don't think it changes. I think the people internally can say as much as they want, but unless Games Workshop as a wider organisation see the community turn around and say, nope, we will not accept that these factions are going to die, and if you're not going to look after them, we're going to look after them. And I know from speaking to the event guys from a 40k perspective, Games Workshop as an organisation don't want to see people changing rules, because they want to make the best game that they can make as an organisation, and they feel that if people start going off piste and changing rules, they can't look at that and make the best game possible. I'd like to think that attitude is there in Old World. No, they don't have the sort of big support from the event side of Games Workshop, but if that sort of approach crosses the different game systems within the company, they will want to make the best game system possible, and they will see that the community are taking their game and changing it, and they will probably not want that state of affairs to remain. Clearly, there has to be a level of momentum behind a set of changes before you can move a company of that size to make some change, but ultimately that will come in time if people stand up and say, nope, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use our toys how we want to use them, and you can board Games Workshop or we'll deviate from you. And if the stuff, which hopefully they do, if you want to keep making money off Old World community, which by the sounds of it, it's doing pretty well, then you have to accept that there is a line in the sand here, and that we aren't going to accept Lizardmen not being part of fantasy. We're not going to accept that ogres don't get a look in. And there's just half mentions of dark elves knocking around. Like it's an old enough game with a most established lore that says these factions are present and they're going to remain. And I like that. I think that's great, because I think we should have as many people wanting to play this game as possible, because still early doors for Old World. It's only been going a couple of years, and starting to cut people out of the community is not something we need to do at this stage.
Yeah. I mean, and just in terms of doing well, we don't have concrete figures, but from what I've seen and been told, the opinion is that Age of Sigmar has not done well with this edition, which does mirror just sort of general sentiment about the game. but Old World and Heresy are both doing very well. So they're kind of like the second seed in terms of financials, and then Age of Sigmar is doing worse. The problem with that is the actual player base of Warhammer games is quite low compared to the people who buy the models. So from just the perception of people who are actually engaged with the game, that might be the case. I can't say whether or not, people are like, oh, would I, I don't play. Am I going to buy this new Age of Sigmar model, or am I going to buy this redo of a 20-year-old High Elf model?
Yeah.
I like a lot of the old sculpts. So, my bias is that actually I prefer the fantasy stuff. It's easier to build, and I'm nostalgic for that time. But I don't know what the casual consumer, the people who just paint and collect and don't play, I'm not sure what they're locked into in terms of getting.
Yeah. And I mean, that's about the sort of momentum you need behind you. I don't think a couple of PDF updates in and of itself is going to be enough to turn the Games Workshop ship around. But if it's consistent and over a period of time, I think that message will get through. And I think you will, at some point, I imagine, see the event organising side of Games Workshop grow, because I think they're seeing from 40k that they can do some really amazing events, really amazing sort of conferences, sort of things, where actually Games Workshop's name can get out there, get wider, get involved with a lot for the actual purchasing of miniatures. And you're right, it's probably still a smaller percentage of people buying models than your people doing it just for the hobby side or just playing with their mates in the garage or whatever. But I think they'll see that the event side of Games Workshop can be profitable, and it can be profitable outside of just 40k and Age of Sigmar, and they do a bit of Heresy as well. So I think eventually that will come. That side of Games Workshop will want to get involved in Old World. I know from a TO perspective, every single time I get an opportunity, we have quarterly calls with Games Workshop, I'm saying to them, when are you bringing Old World into your competitive umbrella, into your event umbrella, sorry. And they're going, oh yeah, we look at it. So eventually that will happen. And the first thing those event guys, if they don't know anything about Old World at the moment, is they'll go, right, what's the state of the game? How do we start putting on big Old World events and really pushing the event side of Old World? They'll look at it and go, well, hang on a minute. We've got one portion of the community going off doing this. We've got one portion going off for doing this. We've got Games Workshop rules saying this. We've got a load of PDFs that Games Workshop are saying we can't use, but actually loads of people are using anyway. We've got a load of people buying stuff from Age of Sigmar to use in Old World. This is a total mess. We can't run an event system based off this. We need to get everybody around the same system. And I don't think they'll ever do that if they don't have the legacy factions in the game. So I think if they have long-term plans for Old World to be a successful event game, for their sort of conferences and things like that and international stuff, and they want to support that, they're going to have to bring the factions in, because the event guys won't be able to run with it in its current form.
I mean, I think that's a nice thought, but like more realistically, that will not be Games Workshop stance. They'll just go head in sand, ignore what everyone else is doing outside of us. It doesn't matter. We only run 3 events.
Yeah,
like they're not going to give a shit. Like realistically, oh no, the community's splintered anyway. Who cares? We'll just do our own thing, and they're not real. Like they're a monolith.
That wasn't their approach to 40k. Their approach to 40k was, okay, the ITC are doing this, and this was obviously 5-6 years ago. And I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow. I think we're probably 5-10 years off Games Workshop event guys doing this. But I think you're probably in a position where 40k was 10 years ago, where it's all a bit over the place. And Games Workshop sat down with the ITC guys and came up with a system that works, built their mission structure around the ITC to start with, and eventually built an event game out of it. And you can argue about the positives and negatives of that, of where it's moved 40k to. And 11th edition looks really interesting, but we'll see how that goes. But a lot of that has come from, I imagine, that event portion of Games Workshop going, we can get some real hype going around this game that pushes it into a wider community.
My perception of that is different to your perception of that. My perception is that they ignored them for as long as they could, and then when the ITC became too big a driving force, they bought them, and now they just do whatever the fuck they want because they own them. So, like, I definitely have a much more cynical view on that interaction than you do.
You're probably right. To be fair, it's probably I'm rose tinting it slightly, but the end result has been a game that is played pretty consistently across the world to the same sort of standard. Like everybody's playing the same game when it comes to 40k.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody's playing the same game when it comes to Old World. And absolutely positives and negatives to that. For me, from an event organising perspective, it's a lot easier if there is a universally agreed way that we play Old World, because then I don't have to make decisions that are potentially controversial. I know, for example, that the moment I decided to put Renegades into the Old World, into the Saffron Slam, there were a section of people that either emailed me or messaged me that said we're never coming to Saffron Slam whilst you're using Renegades, and that's a real shame because there's a whole section of the community I can't use. But I took a survey. 95% of my players wanted to do it, but that 5% now don't feel welcome at Saffron Slam, and I don't know how to change that because the thing they want me to change is going to then piss off 95% of everybody else. So I don't like, as a business owner or as an event organizer, having to cut out sections of the community because I've made a decision about how the game should be played.
Sure.
I think ultimately the people that write the game should make decisions about how the game is played. And we should be in a position where Games Workshop are big enough to say, okay, yes, it's fair enough. The rules that we wrote initially were a bit rubbish. Here's some patterns, and we understand you're going to buy OS models, but we can't stop you because actually let's get everyone around a consistent set of rules and let's update it regularly and let's get an event game that everyone can get behind. As I say, probably 5-10 years out from that, I think, but I think that at least gets us a consistent standard across the place that everybody can play. And then when you're playing at home, you use the rules you want to use. Like, no problem with that at all. But from an event perspective, it'd be really easy if we actually all just got behind the same set of rules.
Yeah, 100%. We're playing 40k from 10 years ago. What would you know? It's not like you were there. That was from Val. Good to see you. I'll be seeing you in person soon, so I can insult you in person instead of doing it through the medium of internet videos. That'll be great. Yeah, I think as well, I wanted to jump in and say, like, in terms of my view, because obviously I've just given a very cynical view, and I think, unfortunately, probably accurate view on Games Workshop. I really like the Old World team from what I've seen from their output, from how they've approached the game.
Yeah.
I feel like I like their attitude, and I'm generally impressed with what they put out. Less impressed with Games Workshop, the corporation. That's very much where my frustrations lie myself.
I think to have even built this game from the start, knowing what we know about Games Workshop in terms of their attitude to risk and how much money they need to make before they'll even consider a project. Can you imagine the shit that JTY and the original designers had to get through to even get a game produced that someone on the business perspective of Games Workshop was even happy to even attempt to sell to people? And I think that was probably like shown most notably when you looked at like how the original Old World was marketed. It was hidden away and dumped on us without much notice, and a couple of community article posts, and
including
think of the
like
hype that an 11th edition 40k is going to get. Just nothing for Old World.
Yeah.
So, and it still did well. So, yeah, I don't think we can question the passion of the people at the core designing the rules. I think they care very deeply about it, and I reckon if you ask them, we wanted Lizardman in the game, and we're working as hard as we can to get them in the game. But there's a huge corporate inertia we've got to get through to get to a point where we'll be able to release them.
Cool. All right. Well, I think there's a lot more that we could say on this, but you do have a hard out, so we probably have to move on to the podcast questions pretty quickly, I would reckon. So let's blast through these. Hold on. How far back do we have to go? When was the last time that you bothered to turn up? Was it the 3rd of March?
Behave. There's there's a question about Herdstone, and the 7th of March is the next one. By the looks of it, there's an actual question.
There are a lot of
from
questions
Richard,
there.
RIP Royal.
we may have to run through these at a relatively rapid pace, but let's go. So Richard
Still
says,
get some chat, I think.
yeah, there's a picture which says, "Can you please rate this herdstone on a scale of 1 to 10?" And it is a square with the word herdstone and a smiley face drawn on it. I can't
Mine
rate
is
that too low because that's probably not far off what my baggage trains generally look like. I don't write on them, but it is normally just like
Baggage train's a bit different, to be fair.
Yeah. Yes. And then Tommy says 10 if we compare to the woods. The woods are not painted. Goldfire says.
Yeah, I hope that's not an event terrain set, but it could, if it's a personal terrain set, crack on.
So Goldfire said, since square-based comp is now balanced around Renegades, it also means that Renegades is balanced around square-based comp. As of now, the power of 2,600 points of Skaven is equal to the power of 2,000 points of Cathay. By using Renegades without square-based comp, you are basically acknowledging that Skaven gets to play with quite a bit less power points compared to the top armies. And then some additional questions on that. My point was that I don't necessarily think it is balanced around Renegades because... Sorry, it's not a balance around square-based comp, because if they make the rules good, they'll just change the tier they're in. That was my sort of like main thought on that. But do you anything in there that you want to pick on?
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think you would look at square-based comp based on the performance of various factions. If Skaven at 2,600 with the new rules that they've just released last week start doing really, really well, they'll drop it down. So I think it's more that they've aimed the Renegades at giving the faction a hand, making them a bit more usable and a bit less of a sort of depressing mess to play, and the balance side will come later. And if Skaven need to drop down to 2,200 points to match with Cathay, then great.
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely. Like that would
so
be.
I think you can use them independently of each other. I probably won't be using square-based comp at Saffron. I need to message either Val or Rob actually, because I think I want to use the draft PDFs at Saffron for teams in May, end of May. But I don't want to use them if they're only half released. So I kind of want to see what the release schedule is for the rest, because I think if everyone's got their new draft PDFs, I think Saffron could be a really good place just to test them out in a slightly more chilled environment. And ultimately, the players, my Dark Elf player, who has seen the new rules, is very keen to use them and he likes them, so I don't want to let him down. But yeah, so I think I'll probably just use the Renegade pack for now and see where we go. Coming back to what I said earlier about I don't think Skaven players want to be as good as Cathay. I think they're quite happy to be a bit worse but actually have a usable faction.
Indeed. Then there was a lot of sort of like back and forth on that, where you answered some of the questions at the time. So just for, given that we're on a time constraint, next question, Callum says, far's the cashew nuts gone in Sainsbury's local? We know that he hasn't had a stroke because he's in the chat and he's been commenting, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe
Nope.
he's just a bit too Scottish for me to understand, perhaps. And then giving you some shit, is it the irony that despite Lewis's reason for bailing last week, it was Edward left in the river with no paddle because they were accusing you of being stuck on the river? Obviously, given that you work with I don't know, boats or something. That's your job, right? You do boats or something.
Or something great.
Yeah, I did say earlier it was my fault. He had told me ahead of time that was the week he couldn't do. It felt like it was whatever. Amy says, "What's your preferred?"
We did have it was a really.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that was a really exciting reason I had to miss the original episode that I was supposed to do, because the Saffron Club has been getting so popular that we've had to open it a second night. So we now do 2 club nights a week in Saffron for all of your Warhammer action, which is just insane. When we first started doing club nights a year or so ago, we were getting like 4 people turn up.
Yeah.
Now, consistently, all tables getting booked, and even Tuesday's not as busy. We're swapping to 2 nights a week now, which is just really exciting to see my local community grow and grow and grow. So long may that continue. So, sorry, carry on, Ed.
Amy says, "What's your preferred comp for cannon fire?" Like, I don't know. Cannons suck, but also whatever. I don't know that I care enough about them that I feel like they need to be comped. I'm not upset when they are. The TSN arena, you can't hit things that you can't see. So if you like hide behind a wood or a building or something like that, then you're protected from the cannons, and that's nice. I do like that. As someone who doesn't typically play cannons, I'm not upset about that. But yeah, that's about it. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with the TSN rules here. I think if you can't see it, then we're not in a world advanced targeting systems or anything like that. Like if we're thinking about the real world experience, I think you probably shouldn't be out shoot stuff you can't see with a cannon. It's just they're not
Nah.
sniper rifles.
You can bounce them over buildings. Sound. But yes. Okay, cool. Great stuff. Then the next question was from Richard. Did you finish your Chaos Dwarves? Not yet. No, I haven't. Not yet. There's probably not going to be a fix my list, but I might do like just a hobby hangout stream, depending on how stressed I am on Friday. So we'll see how that goes. Strife says, "How is Tale of Many Gamers going?" Which has some laugh emojis because I haven't talked about it or even posted in my channel for a while. Which I think is a fine question. I think so. I'm historically very bad at keeping up with stuff like that. The admin of posting and stuff, but I have actually been looking at other people's channels. My goal, or I guess what I'd like to do, is I will be making a video at the end of April, just going over some of the impressive stuff that people have done, because there's some really lovely stuff in there, I think, that should be really shouted out. And I mean, in that time, I will have painted like 3 armies. So I've done stuff. I just haven't posted it. That's my big problem. That's that. And you didn't need to rephrase it. It was okay. I didn't take it as mean. I did think it was funny though. And then Richard says, "Are you going to trap Thomas the Tank Engine in your wall once you move on from Dwarfs?" Referencing, of course, the classic naughty engine in the OG Thomas the Tank Engine books that was just bricked up in a wall.
The most horrifying childhood experience ever.
Yeah.
It's like, is anyone going to go get it? No, he's just going to suffocate in there alone.
Yep, just forever.
He hasn't got any coal to get moving.
Indeed. Oh, thank you, Skaven Scorn. It's speaking of, shout out to my coaching patron. Skaven Spawn went to Adepticon and says, "Just to say, Ed is a great coach. Got me 12th at Adepticon Old World with Orcs and Goblins, which was a great result. And you were the top 3-2 player, which is a great success." I've talked about, and I will post this, I guess, in the coaching section, just for the people who aren't here. I am still planning on launching a website. The goal was to go live on the 2nd of April, so I could dodge the April Fool's Day. It's not ready. Like, I've had a lot of stuff going on in personal life. I am currently working on a lot of things, like trying to get out of this shed that I live in, this 8x10 square room that is slowly driving me to insanity. So it is still coming, but it might be a couple of months down the line. I want to make sure that, like, if I'm going to launch it, I'm going to launch it correctly, as opposed to just half-assing it. Because the goal is basically
the manor is inbound.
No, but like, it would be nice to have a flat with like 3 rooms. So instead I don't want to just exist in the same like spot for 95% of my life. It's getting pretty damn old. But I've talked about that before. Anyway. Last question. Amy says, "Are Renegade rules something that could be copy-striked out by Games Workshop to kill?" That's interesting. An interesting question. I think you maybe have to, like, if they wanted to stop you from doing stuff, you maybe just have to take out certain rule, like, names.
I think the unit names will be copyrighted. Although, I think so if you look at like a spearman unit in AOS, it's not called X Spearman. It'll have a stupid name that's like 3 syllables too long. So it's copyrightable. I think things like High Elf Spearman is probably not something they can copyright.
I think there's enough in there that there would be. So like the Help It Abomination is probably like just one that I pull out my backside. That might be. But yeah, I mean, after the Chapter House lawsuit, where they was like, all right, we don't have elves, we've got elves, and things that we can claim that we've fully made up ourselves and we can copyright. But I guess theoretically, but they would just come back in a version that would get past any copywriting. So I'm not particularly concerned about that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it is. It's probably. I wouldn't put it past Games Workshop, but I think it's I don't know how much spare time their lawyers have got, but that would feel like a pretty harsh thing to start on. But I say I wouldn't put it past them to at least attempt it.
Hey, you know, you're
And
talking
I don't know
about
whether
how
they.
the rules team might be very unhappy, or like the events team might be unhappy that there's multiple different versions of the rules. If you just copy strike out
Yes,
everything,
I think they
that's a
think they're
very
unhappy about that.
that's one way they could go. I'm not saying that I'd like them to do it, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised
No,
if that
absolutely.
was
I
their
think
approach.
yeah. No, if they're unhappy, fair enough. But I think they'd have to be unhappy with an alternative in place.
Yeah.
I think it's if they brought an alternative out, then that's when they might ring Val up and say, "Don't make us send you a letter." Um, but they don't have a viable alternative at the moment.
No. Yeah.
Probably people in the rules team looking at it going, these some interesting ideas. Let's see how it plays out. Let's look at the stats from old world rankings, etc., and see how it's working. We'll definitely be looking at
I believe
seeing
that
how we can copy
Warhammer
that in a
Armies
potential
project.
second edition.
I believe that Warhammer Armies project didn't get any like DMCA's until Old World started to come back. So
Yeah.
there's definitely merits to being like,
Yeah.
until we're doing something with it, fuck it. But it's hard to say.
Absolutely.
Cool. That is the end of the questions, and you do have to leave. So, any last thoughts to leave us on